Hi, welcome to CILT Diploma in Human Resource Management. Course instructor is Shakil Ahmad Siddiqui Shafiqzee, Fellow CILT UK. Okay. Module is Training and Development. Training and development. Placing people to work does not always guarantee their success. If we put people to work, that does not mean that they will also be successful in whatever they do. They need something else, they need something more. And what they need is orientation and training. Both are needed. New employees are often uncertain about their roles and responsibilities. They have their own skill set, but they may not be able to perform what they are supposed to do. The job demands and the capability of the person, they may be different, and thus they must be balanced. And to do this balance, the training is the key. After being trained, the person is able to match his capability or her capability with the job demands and perform accordingly. But once the person is trained and has started to do the job as expected, there is also a need for development. The development helps that person to assume larger goals and look into the future responsibilities as well. The development helps to handle future challenges. Looked at from overall corporate perspective, the distinction between the training is that it is for a current job and the development is for a future which may be required for the person to perform or take care of in due course of time. The modern organizations, they engage their employees into continuous learning. They not only learn by themselves, but they also encourage their people to carry out the activities which will always keep them abreast with the changes, with the technological advancements and the new challenges coming ahead in future. Every organization needs trained and experienced people. It is necessary to raise the skill levels, versatility, and adaptability. If the people are not having higher skills or newer skills, if they're not versatile, if they're not adaptable, then they might leave themselves behind and the organization is a loser. To achieve the required set of advancement and success, the training and development plays an important role and an important part in the success of not only the organization but also the individuals as well. The training has implications for productivity, health, and safety at work and personal development. All organizations employing people need to train and develop their staff. Most organizations are cognizant of this requirement and invest effort and other resources in the training and development. They consider the expenditure of the training as development not as cost but as investment. The training is defined as a process of learning that involves the acquisition of the knowledge, sharpening of the skills, gaining concepts, understanding rules, or the changing of the attitudes and the behaviors to enhance the performance of the employees or the workforce. The training is the immediate improvement required to employ, for example, the skill set and the knowledge to perform a particular task in the organization. If we summarize the training and development, the training is an activity that addresses the current jobs, and the development is the activity that addresses the future jobs. So objectives of the training and development is to improve the organization's performance and enhance the knowledge and skill levels of the employees. If we look into further more detail and in a summarized way, the training is current jobs, development is the future jobs. Training is a planned process which may be short-term and a periodic process, but the development is a long-term, a strategic opportunity, which is looking into the long-term ongoing process. The training is facilitating learning the job related abilities and the activities, but the development helps the person to grow and enhance for the future responsibilities and perform the job which may be coming ahead in the future and the challenges that might be relevant to that job position or the work. The training is application driven, the development is individual, job, and for career enhancement. Once we understand the difference between the training and development, we will now try to understand what is the instruction all about. The instruction has in education a very particular kind of connotation or relevance. It is a teaching method and the learning activities that a teacher uses to deliver the curriculum in the classroom. That is also the instruction. And for the job, the instruction is maybe the set of the guidance or the guidelines which is required for a person to follow to carry out a particular activity or task. So training, development, instructions. Now we come to a very interesting term, learning. What is learning? Learning is the process of acquiring new understanding, knowledge, behaviors, skills, values, attitudes, and preferences. The learning is the ability to possess by the humans and the animals and also some machines to learn new things. There's also evidence for some kind of learning in certain plants, but the human are by far the best learner. The human learning starts at birth, even it might start before the birth and continues until death as a consequence of ongoing interactions between the people and their environment. The nature and the processes involved in learning are studied in many fields. For example, educational psychology, neuropsychology, experimental psychology, and pedagogy. For us, the learning is the process of acquiring new understanding, knowledge, behaviors, skills, values, attitudes, and preferences. The question is why we need training. There are many reasons for the training and we will see some of them. The training is for the improvement of the skills and the knowledge of the employees to perform the assigned tasks. And why we need it? We need the training for as to embrace a new program that can be a change management, that can be the introduction of a new technology, and that can be acquisition or acquirement of the business. Whenever something new is happening, the training comes into play to make that process smooth and adaptable. The training is also a method used to cost control when the organization observes that there are a lot of money being lost, the dollar are being drained in the drain, then the training may be the solution. And to acquaint people to have cost control, the training is used. Then training is used also for employee promotion. There may be some kind of courses which are required to upgrade an employee from the current position or to develop an employee for a future position. Training is also done when a lot of people have left the organization and a lot of people have joined the organization, or an organization is continuously in a process of employing the people. Then the training is required to equip the new joinees with the set of skills and the cultural norms required for the particular organization so that their people are well aware of how to carry out their jobs and responsibilities in the new organization. So training has multi-dimensional requirements and the reasons, few of them we have seen here. But this is not a full list of the reasons for training. There may be more. We have provided you a case study of the Corning Glass. The Corning Glass in the USA, they are doing training in 4 phases. Their phase 1 is the individual training. Their phase 2 is the departmental training, and their phase 3 is the plant and facilities training, and their phase 4 is corporate outside training. The training program, which is in four phases, the first one, if we look into it, is called the individual training. This individual training phase includes an extensive orientation program for new employees and on-the-job training for those who have transferred to a new job. The second phase is departmental training. Hourly and management employees receive specialized courses that are intended to increase departmental productivity, which are relevant to their department. The third phase, which is plant or facilities training, conveys information of general interest to those at the plant. Safety training and courses for personal or professional development are included in this category. And the final phase is the corporate and outside training and development. It includes training and development efforts made by corporate offices, private consultants, and universities. These courses tend to be more general and developmental in nature, forming the backbone of employees' efforts at continuous learning. To support these various levels of the training, the plant coordinator develops a master training schedule that is published monthly on a department by department basis. It shows the name, time, and appropriate audience for each training session to be held that month. This calendar is supplemented by a catalog that shows whether the training subject is an operational, safety, departmental, or plant-wise session. At the Corning Glass, learning opportunities range from skills-oriented training to seminars that deal with broad development issues that upwardly mobile managers can expect to face during their careers. Neither the training coordinator nor the students care much whether a class is intended to be a training or development. The more important concern is whether the seminar helps the employees and the organization. Gentlemen and ladies, this was a small case study which is included in your course notes as Corning Glass USA. Now, if you see the next list, there is the benefits of the training to the employee and to the organization. If you see, the list is quite long and there are more points which may be added to this list, but we have only included few of the important points. You go through them. If you have any questions, you can always refer back to us. Some of the benefits to the organization about the training is that training will lead to improved profitability and or more positive attitudes toward profit orientation. Training improves the job knowledge and skills at all levels of the organization. Training improves the morale of the workforce. Training helps people identify with organizational goals. Training helps create a better corporate image. Training fosters authenticity, openness, and trust. Training learns from the trainee as well. It helps prepare guidelines for work. Training aids in development for promotion from the within. There are also benefits to the individual, which in turn ultimately should benefit the organization. For example, the training helps the individual in making better decisions and effective problem solving. Through training and development, motivational variables of recognition, achievement and growth, responsibility, and advancement are internalized and operationalized. Training aids in encouraging and achieving self-development and self-confidence. Training helps a person develop speaking and listening skills, also writing skills when exercises are required. The benefits in personal and human relations, intra and intergroup relations, and policy implementation. For example, training builds cohesiveness in the groups. Training makes organization policies, rules, and regulations viable. Training provides information on equal opportunity and affirmative action. Then there are certain learning principles. If we see, we are here looking into about the learning. The sole function. Nowadays, the training and learning, they are used interchangeably. The sole function of the learning is to produce change. This change can come from training. This change can come from learning. They are both almost the same kind of concepts. Even on the most basic straightforward skill levels, learners will always tend to resist change. They say the only person who likes to be changed is a wet baby. Learning curve is next. If you look at the screen, you'll find the learning curve which is going upwards, then gradually bending to right hand side, and finally it is becoming flatter. On the y-axis, vertical line T, you have proficiency. On the x-axis, the horizontal line, you have the effort expended. This is a very famous kind of curve. Let me first explain to you what is a learning curve. A learning curve is a concept that graphically depicts the relationship between the cost and output over a defined period of time, normally to represent the repetitive task of an employee or the worker. It was first introduced by a psychologist, Hermann Ebbinghaus, in 1885. If you see the curve in its visual representation of a learning curve, a steeper slope indicates initial learning translates into higher cost savings, and subsequent learnings results in increasingly slower, more difficult cost saving. That means if the curve is steep, it will save you time so that a person can learn a new skill in a short possible time. And after some time, that curve becomes flatter. That is, there no more nothing to learn. So when you start to learn a job, you learn it very quickly. And the more you repeat that job, the more your learning becomes quicker, and finally you will be able to do that job without any errors. The vertical or steeper is the curve, that is your learning is faster and quicker. And then finally, you would have done that job so many times that you were just like a perfect person to do that job, and then there's nothing to learn. The curve becomes flatter. So the learning curve is a visual representation of how long it takes to acquire new skills or knowledge. More vertical or steeper the curve, it takes less time to learn. The more curve is moving to the right hand side, it takes more time to learn, and then the curve becomes flatter. In the business world, the slope of the learning curve represents the rate in which learning new skills translates into cost savings for a company. The steeper the slope of the learning curve, the higher the cost savings per unit of output. That means if your curve is steeper, you will be learning very fast, and definitely when you learn very fast, the job you are doing will be better job, a near perfect job, and that will be a cost saving for the organization. I'll give you an example of a learning curve. A curve can be applied like if you have a measurable task like a factory worker learning to operate a new machine that requires specific repeatable steps. That machine may have 4 steps from start to complete a job. As the worker learns to operate the machine following the procedural steps, he becomes faster and more proficient at using it. The quicker the learner learns that job is better for the person and also for the organization. And this is the importance of the learning curve. So we always endeavor that the learning curve is steeper and becomes flatter as soon as possible. Next, we discuss the 4 stages of learning, which was developed by Noel Birch and then further developed later by different people. This is sort of a quadrant where you can see there are 4 blocks numbered 1, 2, 3, and 4. This is very interesting model to understand how people learn skills in different stages. If you see the first quadrant that says number 1, this is a quadrant of unconscious incompetence. Then number 2 is a quadrant of conscious incompetence, and then number 3 is a quadrant of conscious competence, and number 4 is here the quadrant of unconscious competence. Now, what happens when you are in a stage of unconscious incompetence? That is simply your ignorance or oblivion. You, as a learner or as a person who is trying to learn, has no idea what you need to learn. In other words, the unconscious competence is a state or is a stage or a phase where the learner has no idea what he does not know. It's just like you have no idea that you do not know driving. For example, you have a motor car, but you have no idea that whether you can be able to drive it or not because you have no clue that you do not know what you don't know. And that's the stage or phase of unconscious incompetence, the ignorant phase in a way. Then comes conscious incompetence. You have a car, and now you know that you cannot drive this car because you do not know how to drive a motor car. And here you have a conscious understanding of your incompetence. You have a knowledge or awareness of what you do not know. If you need to do certain work, then you know that you have no knowledge or skill or expertise to do that work. And this is a stage of conscious incompetence. And from there, you can try to learn something and you can learn something. So that time you enter the quadrant of conscious competence or the ladder of conscious competence. Here, you have learned something and you know that you have learned something. So you have a skill, you have an expertise, and you know about it that yes, you know something. So when you know how to do something through conscious involvement, this is conscious competence. And then you do it, and you do it so well that you do not need to remind yourself all the time that you know some skill and or you know how to do certain job. The movement, the work, or the activity you perform becomes so automatic that even you do not need to consciously remind yourself that you know this thing or you can do this thing. This is called unconscious competence. If you move further into it, you can see this now as ladders. The first stage is unconscious incompetence. This is a stage, the first stage where you do not know what I do not know. That is, you do not know what you do not know. You have no idea what you do not know. So you are in a state of complete ignorance, as I told you earlier, or oblivion. Then you learn something and you know, okay, fine, I have a car, but I do not know how to drive a car. So consciously now you are aware of your lack of understanding, lack of knowledge, or lack of skill. And then you try to learn it and you learn it. This is a third stage where you know that you know. In this case, you know that how to drive a car, or you know how to ride a motorcycle, or you know how to do a certain work. And that is a third stage of skill level learning, which is the conscious competence. And after that, when you do it and you are very good at it, then you enter to the fourth ladder or fourth step of the learning, which is the unconscious competence, where you do not need to all the time remind yourself what you know. Things happen automatically from you, and you just do it like a motor skill thing, and you do not need to think about it that what you know. You just, if needed, you just do it. Learning principles. The learning principles, or in other way, the learning guidelines, these are the ways in which people learn most effectively. The more these principles are reflected in the training, the more effective the training becomes, the more powerful the training is, and the more learning experience the training can offer. In the words of Benjamin Franklin, you tell me, I forget. You teach me, I remember. But if you let me do it, I will learn. So sometimes different people have got different style of learning. Some learn by listening, some learn by watching, and some learn by doing it. So as a trainer or as a learning and development professional, you need to understand what are the basic learning principles and how people behave in a learning environment. So these principles that we are going to cover next are participation, repetition, relevance, transference, and the feedback. They are also known as law of participation, law of repetition, law of relevance, law of transfer, and law of feedback. There are research that suggests that they apply equally in any environment, in any part of the world, no matter how far or how distant they are geographically. But these basic principles, they apply to all kind of learning interventions, to all kind of learners, to all kind of training programs. So it is very good for you as a professional to understand these basic principles so that when you are designing or conducting a training program on your own, you are well aware of them and you are better placed to apply them for an efficient and effective, fruitful learning experience or African environment. The first learning principle is the principle of participation. We also call it the law of participation. Learning usually is quicker and longer lasting when the learner participates actively. If you show me, I can remember, but if you let me do it, I can learn it very fast. Participation improves motivation and apparently engages more senses that reinforce the learning process. Especially for the adults, one of the characteristics of the adult learning is that they would like to experience things by themselves. They are more prone to take part into an activity and learn by doing it. So when somebody is participating, as a result of participation, people can learn more quickly and retain learning longer. For example, most people never forget how to ride a bicycle because they actively participated in the learning process. They did it by themselves. That's why they never will forget how to ride a bicycle. The next law is law of repetition. Sometimes it is fun. Repetition apparently etches a pattern into one's memory. The law of repetition means the more you do it, the more it will consolidate into your mind, into your memory. For example, studying for an examination. It involves the repetition of key ideas so that they can be recalled during a test. The more you rehearse the examination, the more you rehearse the knowledge point, the more probable is that they will recollect into your memory when you require them during your examinations. Similarly, most people learn the alphabet in the multiplication tables by means of repetition. So repetition is doing it again and again, and that will go and sit into your memory. This is called the law of repetition of learning. Then the law of relevance of learning. Learning is held when the material to be learned is meaningful. Learning is held when the material to be learned is meaningful. For example, trainers usually explain the overall purpose of the job to trainees before explaining specific tasks. Remember, everybody operates by two radio stations. One is FM, one is AM. FM is for me. What is in it for me? This is one of the station called FM station. Other is called AM station. What is in it about me? If these two answers are relevant to the learner, what is in it for me, the FM station, and what is in it about me, the AM station, then the person's interest for the learning will be manifold increased. If the worker is allowed to see the relevance of each task to his or her job or task or profession, then they will be prone to actively involve into the learning process. And this is the job of the trainer to make sure that he is able to establish a connection between the learner and the training. That is called the principle of relevance or law of relevance of learning. The fourth is transference. The more closely the demand of the training program match the demands of the job, the faster a person learns to master the job. Now, understand the point here. Transference means when you learn something, that learning must be transferred into your work. That means if you learn or have a training on safety, then your workplace and your work should also become safe. So that training must be giving you some kind of result, or you may be able to apply that learning into your workplace. That's called transference. For example, pilots usually are trained in flight simulators because the simulators very closely resemble the cockpit and the flight characteristics of the plane. Close match between the simulator and the plane allows the training to quickly transfer the learning in the simulator to actual flight conditions. So when they meet an emergency, they have done it law of repetition, they have done it law of relevance, and now when they do it by these laws, they are able to transfer the learning into the actual work scenario or working conditions. That is the significance and the importance of the law of transference. So if you see, all those four laws are here actually applied. Law of participation, law of relevance, law of repetition, and law of transference. All these laws are applied in this simulator case. So they keep on doing it, participating it, they keep it repeating it, law of repetition. They keep on transferring it, and it is relevant to their job. Now finally we come to this, which is known as feedback. Feedback gives learners information on their progress. With the feedback, motivated learners can adjust their behavior to achieve the quickest possible learning curve. Without it, they cannot gauge their progress and may become discouraged. If there is no candid, sincere feedback, the learner will never able to know its progress or where the learner is standing at a given moment of time. A candid, sincere, and positive feedback will help the learner to understand his or her position and then to make changes or adjustments for a better learning and to achieve the quickest possible learning curve, a steeper curve. So test grades, for example, are feedback on the study habits to test takers, for example. Also, a formal talk to the learner is a feedback, or some kind of formal report is a feedback, but the learners need to know about their performance. If they do not know about their performance, they will not be able to perform well or improve on their performance. So, about learning principles, ideally, training and development are more effective when the training methods match the learning style of the participants and the types of jobs needed by the organization. The trainers have two goals related to the shape of each employee's learning curve. First, they want the learning curve to reach a satisfactory level of performance. Second, they want the learning curve to get to the satisfactory level as quickly as possible. Although the rate at which the people learn depends on the individual learning principles, help speed up the learning process. Some people learn by doing, some people learn by watching, some people learn by listening, some people learn by the combination of both, some people have got different attitudes. So it's very, very important for a learner and the trainer to understand each other's style and get benefit from the learning program or the training program. Here I will show you on this slide, or will discuss with you some of the principles of learning. So these are just 10 points of the learning principles. Number one is people learn only what they are ready to learn. The willingness of learning is very, very important. People learn best what they actually perform. So if they are doing something or part of them, relevance, they learn the best. People learn from their mistakes. If you touch a hot stove by mistake and it burns your skin or your fingertip, then it is unlikely that you will ever in your life touch that hot stove. Even it is not a hot stove, you always be very careful when you touch an utensil which is on the hot stove or on the stove. People learn easiest what is familiar to them. If something is already known to them or they have an idea about, they will be more prone to learn that thing. People favor different senses for learning. There are five senses here: visual, auditory, kinesthetic, olfactory, and gustatory. That is the power of the seeing and listening and speaking and touch and smell. It is, people have got their preferences to use these or all of them or one or two, maybe more than the other three, to learn. So if you are a trainer, try to understand what is that person's preferred way of learning, using what kind of senses, which is a dominating sense for that person. People learn methodically and in our culture systematically. People cannot learn what they don't understand. Simple as that. If they do not understand a concept, a rule, some knowledge point, they will not be able to learn. So you must, as a trainer, look into that. People learn through practice. If they do, they learn. People learn better when they see their own progress. If they are given a proper feedback and they know where they are, then they will also know where they need to go. So when they know where they are and they know their progress, no matter how small it is, it will motivate them. People respond best. What they are to learn is presented uniquely for them. Always have some kind of creativity or innovation in your learning style. If there is something unique which is given to them to learn, they will pay attention and will be prone to respond that kind of uniqueness better than which is may not be unique. People always, this is a human psyche, that most people, they are in search of variety, versatility. So these are some of the basic principles of learning. They are learning points, and hopefully you will find them very useful. This concludes our part one of the training and development, which here we introduce the learning, training, and development concepts, and we covered some basic points over here. So please go through your notes. Those notes have additional information, and then we will go to the part B of the learning and development module, where we will see how a training program is constructed using a model called ADDIE model, which is a philosophy of instructional system design, ISD, which is a very interesting model, and almost every training today is developed on this model. This is a basic model of constructing a training program. So tomorrow, in your future, in your career, if you ever are involved in designing, building, and conducting a training, this learning will be a great help for you to develop and conduct your own training program. By then, I beg your leave, and we'll see you again in the next module, part 2 of the training and development. Ciao.